You ever notice how some guys can walk into a room, exchange a few words with someone, and suddenly that person can't stop thinking about them for days? Meanwhile, most men spend weeks texting, buying drinks, doing all the right things, and still get forgotten by the next morning. Here's what nobody tells you. Making someone think about you has almost nothing to do with how much time you spend together. It's not about being the funniest guy, the best-looking guy, or even the most successful guy in the room. It's about something way more primal, way more psychological, and honestly, way easier to learn than you think. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to become the person she keeps replaying in her mind long after you've left. And no, this isn't about tricks or manipulation. This is about understanding how human attention actually works and using that knowledge to create genuine, lasting impressions. If you're tired of being instantly forgettable, stick around. And hey, if you want more insights like this, go ahead and subscribe. We're just getting started. So, let me ask you something. When was the last time you met someone who genuinely surprised you? Not someone who impressed you with achievements or status, but someone who made you feel something unexpected in the first few minutes of meeting them. That feeling, that's what we're aiming for. Because here's the thing most guys miss entirely. Women don't keep thinking about men who are predictable. They think about men who create an emotional gap, a question mark, a tiny mystery their brain needs to solve. I'm going to walk you through 3 core principles that make this happen, plus a handful of specific techniques you can use starting today. But first, let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was a client of mine, software engineer, decent-looking guy, financially stable. On paper, he should have been killing it. But every first date ended the same way. Polite conversation, a quick hug goodbye, and then total radio silence. He'd text, she'd reply once or twice, and then nothing. One day he asked me, "What am I doing wrong? I'm nice, I'm respectful, I listen." And that was exactly the problem. He wasn't doing anything wrong, he just wasn't doing anything memorable either. So we changed one thing, just one, and within 2 weeks, 3 different women reached out to him first, including one who'd ghosted him months earlier. What did we change? We made him emotionally unpredictable in the first 3 minutes. And I'm about to show you exactly how. Now, before we dive into the techniques, you need to understand the psychology here. Human brains are wired to remember incomplete patterns. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. When something feels unfinished, unresolved, or slightly out of place, your brain keeps working on it in the background. Think about the last TV show you binged. Why couldn't you stop watching? Because every episode ended on a cliffhanger. Your brain hates unresolved tension. It will literally keep you awake at night trying to close that loop. The same principle applies to attraction. When you create a subtle emotional gap in those first few minutes, her brain will keep coming back to you, trying to figure you out, trying to close that loop. And every time she thinks about you, the emotional connection deepens. So, how do you create that gap without being weird or manipulative? Let's break it down. This isn't about being mysterious in some contrived, calculated way. It's about understanding that human memory works on peaks, gaps, and endings. We don't remember the entire middle of an experience. We remember the moments that stood out, the questions that went unanswered, and how things concluded. Think about your own life. The conversations you remember from years ago aren't the ones where everything was perfectly explained. They're the ones where something unexpected happened, where someone said something that made you think, where you left with more questions than answers. That's the experience you want to create, not through withholding or playing games, but through being genuinely interesting in a way that most people aren't. First principle, strategic vulnerability with a twist. Most guys either overshare or play it completely safe. They either dump their entire life story in the first conversation, or they keep everything surface level and boring. Both approaches are forgettable. What works is revealing something real, something slightly unexpected, but then immediately moving on before she can fully process it. You're giving her a glimpse behind the curtain, but not the full tour. Here's what this sounds like in practice. You're talking, the conversation's going fine, and then you drop something like, "You know what's weird? I almost didn't come out tonight. I've been in my head a lot lately, working through some stuff, but I'm glad I did." And then you immediately shift. You ask her a question, you comment on something around you, you change the subject.
You don't explain what stuff. You don't elaborate. You just let that moment hang there. What you've just done is shown her that you're a real person with depth, but you've also created curiosity. Her brain is now wondering, what stuff? Why was he in his head? Is he okay? Should I ask? And even if she doesn't ask in the moment, that question mark stays with her. Later that night, when she's replaying the conversation, that moment will come back, and she'll think about you. The key distinction here is that you're not being vague to manipulate her. You're being selective about what you share, because not everything needs to be explained immediately. Real depth isn't about telling someone everything about yourself. It's about showing them that there are layers worth discovering. Most men make the mistake of trying to prove their value through exhaustive explanation. They think if they just share enough accomplishments, enough stories, enough credentials, she'll be impressed. But that's not how it works. Attraction isn't built on resumes. It's built on emotional resonance and curiosity. When you share something vulnerable and then move on, you're demonstrating emotional intelligence. You're showing that you can access real feelings without needing to process them out loud with someone you just met. That restraint is attractive. It suggests depth without desperation.
Second principle, disrupting her expectations. Women meet dozens of guys who all follow the same script. They compliment her looks, they ask about her job, they try to impress her with stories about themselves. It's also predictable that it blends together into one forgettable blur. You need to break that pattern in the first 3 minutes, not by being rude or weird, but by doing something she didn't see coming. Let me give you an example. A guy named David tried this at a networking event. A woman asked him the standard, "So what do you do?" question. Instead of launching into his job title and company name like everyone else, he paused, smiled slightly, and said, "That's actually a harder question than you'd think. What I do for work and what I actually care about are pretty different things." She laughed, a little confused, and said, "Okay, so what do you care about?" And just like that, they skipped past the small talk and went straight into a real conversation. She later told him that was the most interesting interaction she'd had all night. Why? Because he didn't give her the answer she expected. Here's another move that works incredibly well. When she asks you a question, instead of just answering, turn it back on her in a playful way first. She asks, "What kind of music do you like?" You say, "I'll tell you, but first, guess. Based on what you've seen so far, what do you think I listen to?" Now she's engaged. She's thinking about you, analyzing you, making mental notes, and whatever answer she gives, you can playfully challenge or affirm, which creates a moment of connection. The key here is that you're not following the standard interview format most first conversations fall into. You're creating a dynamic where both of you are actively participating, and that makes it memorable. Think about the difference between watching a lecture and having a debate. The lecture might be informative, but the debate is what you'll remember because you are actively involved. The same applies to conversation. When you make her participate in figuring you out, rather than just presenting yourself like a product, you create engagement, and engagement creates memory. Another way to disrupt expectations is through your reactions. Most guys react to everything a woman says with approval and agreement. They're so afraid of creating any friction that every conversation becomes a series of "me too" moments. But sameness is boring. Polite disagreement, when done playfully and respectfully, is interesting. If she says she loves something you're indifferent to, you don't have to pretend. You can say, "Really? I never got the appeal of that. What am I missing?" Now you've created a dynamic where she has to defend her position, which means she's investing more into the conversation.
And the more someone invests in a conversation, the more memorable it becomes. Third principle, ending the interaction on your terms. This is where most guys completely blow it. They meet someone, the conversation's going great, and they just keep talking until the energy dies out or someone awkwardly has to leave. And that final impression, that low energy fade, is what sticks in her memory. You need to leave while things are still good. In fact, you need to leave right when things are getting really good. I know this sounds counterintuitive. Why would you end a great conversation? Because leaving at the peak creates incompleteness. It leaves her wanting more. And that desire for more is what makes her think about you later. Here's how Marcus did it. He was talking to a woman at a coffee shop, and after about 15 minutes, the conversation was flowing perfectly. Old Marcus would have stayed there until she had to go, squeezing every last drop out of the interaction. New Marcus said, "Hey, I've got to run, but this has been really good. What's your number? I want to continue this." She gave it to him immediately. And here's the thing, she texted him first that same night, saying she'd been thinking about their conversation and wanted to know his answer to something they'd been discussing. Why did that work? Because he ended the interaction while her brain was still engaged, while she still had questions, while she still wanted more.
That unresolved energy carried over into her entire evening. You can do this in any context. If you're messaging someone and the conversation's going well, don't wait for it to fizzle out. Say something like, "I need to get back to this thing, but I'm curious about something you said. Let's pick this up later." And then actually stop responding, even if she replies right away. It feels uncomfortable at first. You'll want to keep the momentum going. But trust me, that discomfort you feel is the same discomfort she'll feel. And that discomfort is what keeps you in her mind. The psychology here is powerful because it goes against every instinct you have. Every fiber of your being will tell you to milk the interaction for all it's worth. But that's scarcity thinking. That's the mentality that good connections are rare, so you need to extract maximum value from this one right now. But that energy is palpable. She can feel your neediness. She can sense that you're clinging to the interaction because you're not sure when the next one will come. When you leave while things are good, you're communicating abundance. You're saying without words that you have other things going on, other people to see, other priorities to attend to. And that scarcity of access to you is what creates value. Now, let me give you a few specific techniques you can start using immediately. Technique 1. The intentional pause. When you're talking to her, especially in those first few minutes, don't be afraid of silence. Most guys panic and fill every gap with more talking, but strategic pauses create tension, and tension creates memorability. Try this. After she says something interesting, instead of immediately responding, just look at her for 2 seconds. Really look at her like you're considering what she said. Then respond. That pause does 2 things. It shows you're actually listening and thinking, which is rare, and it creates a tiny moment of uncertainty, a little spark of "what's he thinking?" that makes the interaction more dynamic. The pause is one of the most underutilized tools in communication. We live in a world where everyone is rushing to respond, to fill space, to avoid any moment of quiet. But quiet is where tension lives, and tension, when used correctly, is magnetic. Think about your favorite movies. Where does the drama come from? Not from constant action, but from the pauses between the action, the moments where characters look at each other and you can feel something happening beneath the surface. You can create that same effect in conversation. When you pause before responding, you're forcing her to sit in that moment with you. You're creating shared tension, and that shared experience of tension creates connection. Technique 2. The callback. If she mentions something early in the conversation, bring it back up later in a surprising way. This shows you were paying attention, and it creates a sense of continuity that makes the interaction feel more significant than it actually was. For example, if she mentions she's stressed about a work presentation, and then 20 minutes later you're talking about something completely different, you can say, Wait, when's that presentation you mentioned? You seem too calm about it right now. Suddenly she's thinking, he remembered that? He's actually paying attention? Most guys wouldn't have even registered that detail. You just separated yourself from 90% of the men she meets. The callback technique works because it demonstrates genuine interest without being overbearing. You're not grilling her with follow-up questions in the moment. You're casually referencing something from earlier, which shows your mind was engaged even when you moved on to other topics. This is how you show someone they matter without explicitly saying it. Actions always speak louder than words, and the action of remembering a small detail communicates care and attention in a way that saying, "I really care about what you're saying," never could. Technique 3. Playful disqualification. This is a subtle way to create intrigue. Instead of constantly seeking her approval, occasionally suggest, in a playful way, that you two might not be compatible. She says she loves reality TV. You say, "Oh man, I don't know if we can be friends now." Obviously you're kidding, but that moment of playful pushback is so different from the usual "me too" energy that most guys give off. It makes her brain go, "Wait, is he not interested? Why do I care?" And just like that, she's more invested. This technique works because it flips the script. Usually she's the one being pursued, being impressed, being won over. But when you playfully disqualify yourself, you're suggesting that she needs to win you over too. This creates a more balanced dynamic where both people are evaluating each other rather than one person performing for the other. And balanced dynamics are way more attractive than one-sided pursuits. Now here's something I want you to try this week. Drop a comment below and tell me about the last time you had a conversation that someone brought up again days later. What made it memorable? Let's break down what actually works in real life. Because here's what I've learned after coaching hundreds of men through this. The guys who make lasting impressions aren't the ones trying to be perfect. They're the ones willing to be present, to take small risks, to create real moments instead of just going through the motions. Let me tell you about one more situation, because I think this drives the point home. There's a guy named Alex who used to spend entire evenings with women, multiple dates, investing tons of time and energy, and they'd still end up just friends or ghost him. Then he started applying what we're talking about. On one particular night, he met someone at a friend's party. They talked for maybe 10 minutes total, but in those 10 minutes, he did 3 things. 1, he shared a quick story about a decision he'd been struggling with, but he didn't ask for advice or over-explain, he just let it sit there. 2, when she asked what he did for fun, instead of listing hobbies, he said, "I'm trying to figure that out actually. I've been so focused on work that I'm realizing I don't even know anymore. What about you? What's something you do that makes you lose track of time?" That question hit different. It wasn't small talk, it was real. 3, after exactly 10 minutes, he said he needed to catch up with the friend who had invited him, but he wanted to continue the conversation. He got her number and left. She texted him the next day. They met up that week, and a month later, she told him that their conversation at the party was the moment she knew she wanted to get to know him better. 10 minutes, that's all it took. Because those 10 minutes were intentional, present, and just incomplete enough to keep her curious. Now, I need to be clear about something. None of this is about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding how human psychology works and using that knowledge to present your authentic self in the most impactful way possible. You're not trying to trick anyone. You're trying to create the conditions for genuine connection by avoiding the boring, predictable patterns that make people forgettable. Think about it this way. You probably have interesting thoughts, real emotions, actual depth. But if you present all of that in the same flat, overeager way that every other guy does, it doesn't matter how great you are, you'll still blend into the background. These techniques aren't about changing who you are, they're about changing how you show up, about being more intentional with your presence, about creating space for curiosity instead of filling every moment with nervous chatter. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start doing this, it becomes natural. You're not constantly calculating or overthinking. You're just more aware,
more present, more comfortable with letting moments breathe. Let me give you one more piece of the puzzle, because this ties everything together. The real secret to making someone think about you isn't just about what you do in those 3 minutes.
It's about who you are when you're not trying to impress anyone. Women can sense desperation. They can feel when a guy's performing, when he needs validation, when he's trying too hard. And that energy, no matter how well you execute these techniques, will undermine everything. But when you're genuinely comfortable with yourself, when you're not attached to outcomes, when you're just as happy walking away as you are continuing the conversation, that's when everything clicks. That's when the pauses feel natural instead of calculated. That's when the vulnerability feels genuine instead of strategic. That's when leaving early feels confident instead of manipulative. So yes, use these techniques, practice them, but also do the deeper work of building a life you're genuinely excited about, so that making an impression on someone becomes a bonus, not a need. Because the most attractive thing you can be is someone who's already content, who's already moving forward, who's just open to sharing that journey with the right person. This is why I always tell guys, work on your life first, relationships second. When you have genuine passion for your work, your hobbies, your friendships, your personal growth, you don't need to manufacture mystery. You are mysterious because you're genuinely occupied with things that matter to you. You don't need to create incompleteness in conversation because your life itself is so full that any single interaction is just a small part of a much bigger picture. And women sense that.
They can tell the difference between a guy who's strategically withholding information and a guy who genuinely has so much going on that he can't possibly share it all in one conversation. The first feels manipulative. The second feels intriguing. Here's your action plan. This week, have at least one conversation where you intentionally leave before the energy dies. Could be with anyone, doesn't have to be romantic. Just practice ending interactions on a high note and notice what happens. Second, practice strategic vulnerability. Share something real, but don't over-explain. Drop it into conversation naturally and then move on. See how it shifts the dynamic. Third, use the callback technique. Remember small details people mention and bring them up later. Watch how surprised people are that you were actually listening. These aren't massive changes, but the compound effect of implementing them consistently will transform how people experience you. So let me ask you this. What's the one thing from this video that you're going to try first? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one and I'll respond to as many as I can. And if you found this valuable, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the next video where we go even deeper into the psychology of attraction and presence. Because here's the truth. Becoming unforgettable isn't about being someone else. It's about being more intentionally, more confidently, more presently you. And once you figure that out, everything changes. I'll see you in the next one.